And there are some spectacular photos of grain growing in Nepal, harvesting, Lance's garden one year. There are some really special keepsake photo memories here. So please avail yourself of them over on the table. There's also a few pictures of when I first came to the Valley. Page 2 contacted my family, we were in California, and said, I found a piece of property, come. So we quickly jumped in the car. I had a 9-month-old baby, and we jumped in the car and drove, 4 of us, over here. And as many of you know, when you come down into Hotchkiss, it was 11 o'clock at night, you're supposed to slow down. Well, there was nobody on the road, and we didn't know this area. We didn't slow down, and we got stopped. And that was our first introduction to the difference of the way of life here in the Valley. Because we get stopped in Hotchkiss. And we saw a piece of property. It's now a very elaborate mansion property with farming. But we bought that property together with another group of people. We did a small community there for a while and became entrenched in the Valley. And that was in 1990, and we've been here ever since. There's a few photos in here of my family, of all 8 of the kids, and the few people that came with us from California, one of whom many of you know, Zoe Zappa. She's in here as a young Zoe Zappa, with really long curly hair. And K2 treasured the people and the seeds and plants that were so much a part of his life. I mean, that was all that he did, was grow seeds, grow plants, and catalog them. I don't know, a show of hands, has anybody ever seen his catalog? So that catalog was hand done. The letters are about 1/4 inch high, and it took him 3 years to do the first one. Every seed has a history behind it, and he wrote the whole history out. And if you talk to him on page 2, which many people did, or got on the phone with him from other parts of the world, or from this part of the world, you could spend 6 or 7 hours on the phone with on page 2. He could talk forever about seeds and his love of seeds. His favorite story that he shared with me a number of times was in the Russian Revolution. He just loved this story, if you haven't heard it. In the Russian Revolution, when the peasants were starving, and the seed bank was, a big granite-type building, an elaborate building, and the scientists that were conserving the seeds were behind the doors, barricaded in, because the peasants wanted to come in and get the seeds to be able to have bread to cook, to use the seeds to be able to make food. And P2 loved the fact that the scientists kept the people out. I'm a cook, so that was always a hard story for me to relate to, that the seeds were more important to the people, except of course I did get that without those seeds in reserve and without that historic bank account, so to speak, there wouldn't have been any grain left in Russia, and grain was very much a part of their heritage food-wise. So I'm going to leave this on the table for all of you, or any of you that would like to see, along with some other photos here of things that on page 2 grew. I want to open it up. My voice is holding out, so Sarah might not have to talk. I want to open it up for a minute if any of you have questions. Lance knew on page 2 very, very well as well. We harvested, should we say, Lance? A couple of 100 buckets of seeds after page 2 passed away.
Oh, there's more than that.
More than that?
I got 50 at home.
Yeah, I wanted to say like 400 or 500 buckets, 5-gallon buckets of seeds. It might have been more than that. And there were barrels and barrels of seeds. He had an enormous collection, supposedly the largest private seed collection in America. And most of that has gone to the Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance. We still have some left. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do with some of it. And if
I'm going to grow a garden.
Lance, you want to say anything about that?
Not anything about seeds. If you want to call me and come take an appointment, go through them at any time. And there's also a collection of over 2,000 books that I have.
So on page 2's nature was to collect. Collect he did.
It depends on things. If there was a book sale, he'd be there, don't be there.
He would be there and he would go home with at least 10 or 12 books. And there were a lot of book sales in this valley.
He gave me over the years, he would collect books for me. And every time I'd see him, I'd come to visit, and I'd be like, oh, I'm a little hungry, you want to eat some food or something? And he'd be like, no, let's sit and clean seeds seeds for about 5 hours. And so we'd clean seeds, and then you can, oh, I have some books for you, and we'd have a big box or 2 of books. I had to keep them in a little van for like 3 years. I just had no place to store, and I was traveling, and he would just give me books every time I saw him. He was a very, very special collector of everything beautiful, and everything small, and everything unique that had stories. He was a collector of stories as well. And I have a lot of his writings as well. Unbelievable writings about trips to Peru and various places, and collecting seeds with people. So if anyone ever wants to learn more about the PhD, check out some of what we've got in place.
All right, anybody have any questions about a picture, things you'd like to share? Experiences you've had with him? 10-hour talks on the phone?
I just gotta say, when I first saw, I saw his catalog before I met the man, and knew anything about him, and when he was in the Source Point Seed catalog, it was just this revelation. It was the magical seed catalog that you've always been searching for. You couldn't find it on the internet, you had to mail order it, and when it came that day, it just blew my mind, and I'm really sad I didn't get to see him in more recent years, but my garden for over a decade has resident plants that came from him from the far reaches of the world, and I'm really grateful for that. If you even though they're obviously not for sale anymore, if you can get your hands on a Source Point seed catalog, it is really worth looking at. It was a work of art.
Are there copies of the catalog still around, you think? Or?
We've been trying to find one, and
We looked for some.
Yeah, we have access to one, and we're gonna PDF it, and it'll be on the Rocky Mountain Seeds
Great.
website. So maybe, I met him about 3 years ago. I'm Bill Torment from the Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance, and revelation, that doesn't come close. I grew up in a small mountain town. In the late 70s, I looked out at the world and I went, oh my God, we're gonna need our own agriculture at some point. All these economic and political forces going around, I'm just gonna feel better if we have our own. And in order to have our own agriculture in the Rocky Mountains, we need our own seeds. Local seeds, local food needs local seeds, otherwise it's just not a resilient system. And so what we really needed to do, and this is what I thought about in 1980, was somebody ought to scurry around the world, collect all the seeds they can, bring them home and start trying them in these weird 8,000, 7,000, 6,000 foot elevations and see what works. And so, years later, I meet Mpeitu, and that's exactly what he's done. And there's others throughout the Rocky Mountain West. We're finding characters, I call them. And they're brilliant seed breeders. And they're single-mindedly focused on this. And they've really done the work, the invaluable work that we're all going to need to do. They're just 20 or 30 years down the road in front of us. And the treasures they leave, this 100 buckets of seeds, are just invaluable, in our opinion. So what we're doing, I took 48 buckets home. We've got volunteers for the Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance, and we don't want them. What we want to do is get them out and share them. And so we've got a Rocky Mountain Heritage Grain Trials program. So we went through the grains first, because that seems really important if we want our own food. And you can have access to all of his barley, weeds, quinoas, millets, amazing things through that. And then we're hoping to add in about 500 different things in our Seed Stewards network. So if you're interested in getting access to that. And we're not a seed company, we don't want to be, we're just a networker. We just want to make sure that when you find something in the Rocky Mountain West that works, other people who live in the Rocky Mountain West know about it. And you can share seeds and information, and also about what doesn't work, so that we can all get down this road together faster. So that's really what we do and why we're here, and we're in awe of the work that he did.
And that, of course, would please his heart so much, because as you said, he had a vision when he first came to this valley of what was possible in terms of seeds and growing. This is in Lazy Valley. And he had a vision, and he walked out that vision, most of the time pretty alone. And to hear that people are grateful for the seeds that he left behind, really see the value in the work that he's done, really it does honor to him on page 8. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chrys.
Focus Research Center in the state, which was kind of shocking to me that we didn't even have one of those focus centers, which what a perfect valley for it to be in. So, and we're still kind of defining what the research priorities are. I think if you guys have some vision and, we would love your input. And Frank Stonecker is going to be the manager of the station. Those of you that don't know him, you might know his fruit, which is a seed orchard. And one of the focuses that the committee was most passionate about, I guess, with some of our first meetings, was exploring organic seed and exploring that opportunity for people to be producing organic seed in this area. There's definitely a huge need in the organic community for more organic seed production. So that's going to be some of the research we're doing. I don't have too much more to say. Does anyone have any questions about it? Well, things will be progressing. There'll be some community events and things as we're moving forward. And we've got a few grants and stuff like that.
Will there be any like CSU students, that come out and are going to be working there?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's going to be a part of it. I don't know of anyone in particular that I haven't chatted with. I'm not sure what the update is on that.
Is there a website or a mailing list?
No, not yet. We're, seeking funding and figuring out research priorities. There's going to be a lot of seed growing. I think Frank's going to work on this year, just kind of trying a lot of different things. I've been encouraging him to look into onion seed production. That's been traditionally grown here a lot.
And will you have any hours when you be opening where people can visit yet, or anything like that?
I don't know about that, but I can inquire. You get my contact.
There's a website, but I don't
Is
think
there a
I don't
website?
think the-
John's on the committee as well.
He's like, the Rogers Mesa part of it is not updated, but if you search like CSU research station, you'll wind up on a website that talks about the 6 or 8 of them that are around the state. And I know Frank was wanting to reinstate a brown bag lunch program, and I think that's on Wednesdays, don't quote me, at like noon. They used to do this, where you just bring your lunch in a brown bag and sit around, and sometimes they'd have someone speak or not, and just all talk about drought or seeds or whatever happens to be the topic of the day. And so I think he's going to do that again.
And it sounds like a lot of growers and things come to that, or have come in the past. Well, he was talking about Wednesdays doing the brown bag lunch. But that's what I was kind of vaguely mentioning, is that we're going to try to do some community events at the station.
I think you said something about trying to get funding and grants.
Yeah.
In case you're not aware of it, Delta County got special funding from the feds. It was run through Delta County Economic Development by a group called Better Cities. That was the company that did the study.
Okay.
One of the things, and it was to diversify the economy. That was what it was all about. Because the coal mines going out, what are you going to do? One of the recommendations in that Better Cities study you should use when you're going after grants, because it said Delta County needs to set up a center of excellence for organics.
Nice.
Which you got.
Yeah.
Which is what you're doing. You can get a copy of the report, the final report from Robbie LaValle, the county administrator.
Okay. Better Cities?
It's Better City was the company that did it.
Okay.
And it was about economic diversification in Delta County.
Yeah.
And that was, they had 5 or 6 different things. And One of them was setting up a center of excellence in organics.
That sounds really useful, thanks for that. Yeah. All right.
I feel compelled to maybe give you a little bit of historical perspective around this sort of thing. Up until the 1930s, in this country, it was stations like this that really drove home and anchored the agriculture, the great agriculture that we created in this country over the previous 150 years. We had state experiment stations, and a lot of them were hooked to the land-grant universities. And that all went away as we privatized agriculture and especially seed. Up until then, it was a public resource. And so I just want to just remind us that what's going on there may be one of the most important things that's going on. Not only for you guys, but throughout the whole West. And I'll just give you another...
It's quite something to see a research station open.
What's that?
Close.
Right.
Normally, you see them close. They've been going through actually. So to have one opening back up
Yeah, it's
is
good.
something.
And I'll just
you guys
give...
should
Yeah,
really-
thank you. One of the other ones that was opened up a few years ago was up in the Skagit Valley of Washington, and a wheat breeder, Steve Jones, wanted to work on local wheats and developing a local economy around it, especially for making bread. And they said, well, Steve, there's no funding for that. He was getting about $1 million a year in funding through Washington State to do commercial wheat. He said, no, I want to grow wheat here. This isn't a wheat basket anyway, but there's wheat that will grow here. And so he said, isn't there an abandoned experiment station up in the Skagit Valley that's been boarded up? And they said, yeah. And he said, can I have that? And they said, yeah, you can have it, but there's no funding. He lost all, I think, $850,000 a year in funding through the university. So he had to start raising his own money and started building a program that's now known as the Bread Lab. You know, last year both Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates visited. It's one of the most famous things. They grew 10,000 varieties of wheat just to trial, just to find which ones would work right there, and baked 900 loaves of bread this big.
Wow.
So they can taste it and see which one is best for bread. That's the kind of movement that's happening. It's waking up funding as well as economic opportunities. And so follow those guys. Figure out how to do it here and you won't be sorry, in my opinion.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Of course, to Voga Valley Organic Growers Association, Slow Food West Slope, and the Learning Council. And then all of you, thanks so much for being here. I love all the seed love in the room. That's my favorite thing in the world is seed love. And so thanks for coming out, and I think you all have that seed love or you wouldn't be here on a Friday night. I hear that we're going to be competing with karaoke, so glad you're here, and then you can maybe go there. Hope you had the chance to enjoy some of those beautiful seeds over there. I saw some, I'm kind of a bean freak. I think, you know, I call myself the crazy bean lady, and I saw some new beans over there that I've never seen, and I'm pretty excited about that. So hopefully you found some seeds that really spoke to your fancy, to your inner seed. I'm happy to be the project director, project coordinator, or whatever they call me, for Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance. We're pretty freeform. We're a small staff of 4 people. We're all part-time and passionate about the work we do around regionalizing seed with people in communities like you. I think that is like one of the most important and positive things we can be doing in the world right now is feeding each other, right? And growing the seed to feed each other right here in our communities and adapting the seed. And we talk about, Bill and I were talking about this on the way in, like it's a very much an external journey, but it's also such an internal journey too. And I think that's something that brings us together, that we kind of, again, back to that seed love. We can feel that and we know how important it is. So I'd like to know how many of you are already growing seed? Seed growers out there at any level. Have you ever like just even accidentally grown a seed? That's how it starts, right? Yeah, wheat seed, that counts. And then do we have some, I know we have some farmers in the room. Farmers. And some backyard growers. Who's got their garden going? Do we have some seed activists? Maybe people are here just to really be the seed activists in the group. And seed educators. I mean, there are a lot of ways that we all come together with seed master gardeners. I mean, the list can go on. The Research Center will be a whole nother level. And so again, just a shout out to all these ways that seeds bring us together. You might see some new faces in here and you're like, hey, I didn't know that person was into seeds. So make sure that you get to know each other because you guys are your future, obviously, and you're a strong one. I love the turnout here. I do want to mention quickly a couple of things. Definitely thanks again to the local organizations. We have to thank a couple of our sponsors. Calliopeia is a wonderful organization that has the vision with us. They're our people, and they are wonderful supporters. UNFI, the SARE, actually, I'll tell you a little bit in a minute about the SARE grant that we just were awarded, so that's pretty exciting. That's a big grant. And then the Pond, well, it's a nice grant. Pond Foundation is more of a grassroots foundation. But I want to also thank each of you, again, just for being involved at the level you are. We are totally a grassroots organization. Those are our kind funders, but really we're grassroots. And if you want to join us, there are a lot of different ways. It's not all a financial join, but there is that opportunity. I have to channel our deputy director when I come to these events because she can't join us. And she would say, grab one of these on your way out and just think about it. Seed Stewards, this is a free program that we were talking about. We have Amplitude's seeds available, and it doesn't cost to become a seed steward at all. We just want you to join us and grow out seeds for your community. If you'd like, we plan on sending out some of his seed selection. In fact, all of what we have enough of. Some of the small stock is just being stored at a seed temple in New Mexico for safekeeping, but we're trying to do grow outs of all of the seed, which is a huge project, and we can't do that. We need help doing that. So that's what the seed stewards will be putting out to the seed stewards this year and then into the future is help us do these grow outs so we can keep the seed going. I'd like to think that is what he would want us to do with the seed. So we're pretty excited about that. Anything else you would say about that?
Well, you can go online and sign up, and all we ask is that you commit to growing one thing and sharing the seeds. And we have a map up now where you can pull up a map on our website with a directory, and we've got 285 people that have signed up for this program. We're doubling every year. This is exponentially more than Seed Savers Exchange developed for our Mountain West. People are coming out of the woodwork to do this. And so you can pull up a map and see all the little dots, find somebody close to you, click on it, and you can communicate with them directly. We don't, that way the network just grows itself. And you can find out, or you can search for different kinds of seeds or vegetables or grains or whatever and pull up those seed stewards. And so we're just using this modern software to allow us to connect with each other. And as Leanne said, we're just 4 part-time people, and we try to stay out of the way as much as we can and let this network build itself. So.
Yeah, so we're excited about the development of that and getting those seeds out there. We talked about grains. This is about our grain trials project, and this is a really fun project. We have 265 grains now, thanks to a lot from Amplitude's collection, but that people are trialing throughout the Mountain West. So again, we're bringing that grain economy back. The breadbasket became kind of where a lot of the focus went, but people have been growing grains in the West for a long, long time, and we went back to some of that research from the early 1900s and found the grains that were being grown in the Mountain West. We were able to secure some little handfuls, literally 25 seeds in some cases, and we were growing those out little by little, and then people return double what they grew out. So if they had 10 seeds, then they return 20, and and then they keep the rest so they can continue growing it out. It's a really exciting and fun project. We also have ancient grains in there, and in fact, in the 1900s, emmer was being grown in the Mountain West. So it's fun to see how it responds. These grains, these seeds are so adaptable, and we're going to need to be as adaptable as they are. So they're really inspiring to work with, and that's the Grain Trials program. You can sign up for that. Also, everything on the website, of course. Seed stewards we talked about, and then we have some really fun events coming up. This one's the big one we've been looking forward to. After this, we have our seed school teacher training, and that's happening April 22nd through 27th in Denver. We invite anyone and everyone to join us on that. I actually have scribbles up there of the events as well, that you can grab one of these on your way out, and it'll tell you all about these things that we have coming up. And included in that is a Seed School Online. So that's a 7-week, well, you can do it over 7 weeks. You probably do a crash course of between now and the 22nd of April if you wanted to join us at Seed School Teacher Training. But that's so you have your foundation of what you learn to teach about. And tomorrow will really be a crash course on that, Seed School in a Day. It is full, but I hope a lot of you are joining us there. A lot of people with the name tags will be there tomorrow. We have a Seed School in Vermont, August 5th through 10th, so if that's in your vacation plans, you might join us there. We're going to have some great guest speakers and guest presenters there. And Seed School Online, I mentioned, is always available. Anything else on
Well, I just wanted-
programs?
See, I woke up the other morning, I was thinking, if you go back 2 generations, every gardener and farmer saved seeds. I mean, for all the history of humanity in agriculture, seed saving was part of it. We're really an isolated little block that got away from that. We've had it all privatized and been taught that we're not as good and we can't do it ourselves. And so we need to get back to that. Just to produce the diversity and resilience we're going to need in each individual area of the world. The more you have your own seeds, the more wealthy your community will be as we go forward. That's my vision for things. It's a real simple one. And so, I just run the numbers. We have 150 million gardeners in this country. It's the #1 outdoor hobby. It's right up there with bird watching, okay? And we probably have 150,000 seed savers. So I figure each one of us has to train 1,000 people, all right? And so that's what teacher training's about. We've run 60 people now through our teacher training program. We'll get you up and running. It's 30 years of experience was boiled down into a 6-day seed school program, was boiled down into a seed school online, and now we've got all this stuff, and then we're lucky enough that people are coming from all over North America for these trainings. 20 people get together in a room and figure out how to use all the latest everything to get this word out and get more of this 150 million people up and running. And it's really exciting. It's a work in progress. And, we're learning to stay out of the way. We get some of the best extension agents, university professors, activists from the barrios in LA. Last time I just got taken to the map because I used male and female flower parts in my description of botany, and that's no-no now in the Bay Area because it's offensive to the queer and transgender and gay community, where they now see sexuality as a spectrum, right? It's not just male and female. That's just too black and white anymore for the communities that are there. And so now we have to say pollen producing and pollen receiving, all right? Then you're okay. So that's part of teacher training now. And that's an example of what's starting to happen. So.
Our teachers definitely teach us, and we have a couple Seed School teacher training graduates in the room, just saying. And we just really have continued relationships with the people in these special trainings, so I really enjoy that myself. And then we do have a new one for this year grant. We were awarded to do a Seed School farmer training, and that's for farm professionals, so the farm professionals can go and train the farmers who often can't make it to Seed School for a week. Let's face it, that is really hard. I have a farm in Vegas, Colorado, and it's hard to get away for a week. I get it. So we're going to be training the trainers so they can get out to the field and just train the farmers on site. That's super exciting. That's October, dates forthcoming, but I hope you can help us get the word out on that because we're really excited.
Maybe we'll come to the research center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The kickoff.
Yeah, that's just been a big push is that we work with a lot of the backyard growers and we need to scale up. We want our farms to have enough supply of seeds, and Laura Parker is helping with that immensely. I'll stop talking. Please go to our website and please join us and continue this regionalizing seed movement. It's super exciting. It's all a positive, really great experience. I want to introduce Bill McDormand, our visionary and our director. You've heard some from him, so I'll just briefly say a little bit about him. He's the founder of Seed School that we're putting on tomorrow, which is now in its 7th year. Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance is in its 3rd year. And Bill has graduated more than 1,000 students from Seed School. And he lives now in Cornville, Arizona, and he also ran High Altitude Garden Seeds Trust and was the director of Native Seed Search. He's a very inspirational director, and it's a pleasure to work for him, and I'm happy that I can share them all with you, that he goes on the road with me still and does projects and programs like this. And I will also introduce our other moderator this evening, Daphne Yannakakis. Yes. Zephyros Farm. I bet you all know her, but 15 years that they've had the farm on Boa Mesa. I'm curious about the story behind that name, Boa Mesa. I know what Zephyros means now. God of gentle western wind. 7 acres in the market garden, 35 flowers and vegetables, dahlias, working into seed for high desert seed for Laura Parker, which is awesome. And her favorite seed is the poppy. Her favorite flower is the peony. And Bill's favorite seed is einkorn, and his favorite song right now is "If Only You Could" by Donna and the Buffalo.
Hi, farmer. So Laura she runs High Desert Seed. She also has a market garden. She's been farming for 10, 11 years, rough, más o menos. And she's also had amazing experience working with at the Organic Seed Alliance Executive,
Organic Seed Growers and Trade Association.
Okay, sorry, that one was quick. Organic Seed Growers and Trade Association Executive Director, a little blip there, and then she also worked with Vandana Shiva for another term as well in her early years, and Dan Hobbs. We know Laura from the Telluride Farmers Market, and we also know her as she is our guide, our seed guide on our farm. Donnie, my husband, is sitting next to her. And we're super excited to work with her beautiful seed company, Grassroots, Mountain, especially adapted to our area. She has an amazing selection. You guys got to check it out. And she has a huge wealth of knowledge. And we feel super excited that there's potential for all of us growers here on many different levels to be able to produce seed and have it be specially adapted to our valley, which is so exciting. And and another just great avenue for us market farmers and farmers in general, just to keep the income sources diverse and just keep this valley thriving. So thank you, Laura. And then Donnie Lareau. I had all these questions that I asked them, and then Leanne asked me these questions. I was like, oh gosh, there's so much stress. And so I'm just going to pick and choose. We're going to introduce the best I can. I'm trying to keep it quick. So Donnie, my husband, he's the co-owner of Zephyros Farm and Garden. His favorite game is, what's that card game, hun? It's the...
Pounds.
Pounds is his favorite card game. Lauren Hill's his favorite artist. He is, we grow veg and flowers. We've been here in the valley for 15 years. We live off the Boa Mesa. He has been the president of the Organic Farm and Research Association. He's been the president of VOGA. He has been a soccer coach on many levels for our son, and he has just recently gotten back from the Organic Seed Alliance conference in Oregon, and he is also the pirate on our ship and driving our train, which is great. And it's really it's exciting to have seed be part of our new loot. So anyway, the next one, Pat Frazier, another fabulous presenter or panelist. And Pat owns Peace and Plenty Farm. She's a Redlands Mesa lady. And she has just done, I can't even tell you how many things she's done for this valley in terms of biodynamics, education. She has mostly storage. She's been farming in the valley now for 15 years. And that's just our valley. That doesn't count the other side of the mountains. So we're just talking about specifically here. She's doing mostly storage crops, grains, flour, corn, medicinal herbs, and she is the biodynamic preparation educator and the president. Are you president of? Oh, okay. Yes. So, you want to tell me now the name is like what?
Josephine Porter.
The Josephine Porter Institute, yes. Yes, she is a woman of many talents. And not only that, we've got perennials, tree fruits, and cows. So, and she started saving, she's always saved seed on her farm. That's from the get-go. And her favorite song, do you want to change it?
No, I don't want
You shall, okay, the circle, will the circle be unbroken? There we go. And then another amazing seed guide and friend and just amazing gardener in our valley. Very excited to have Lance on panel. And he guides people weekly on the worm on our radio station as well. Just in general, just pretty amazing person. He's been here since, what did we say here, Lance? Now I'm lost my, since 79. Yes, and he is not quite on Redlands, a little off to the side, Lareau Creek. Yeah, so you gotta go up Lareau Creek to get to Redlands. At least it's one way. Yeah, so beautiful garden. If you ask him what he grows it all, and that's what he does because he provides all of his food for himself and all of his seed. So it is the continual cycle, always on his. And he does wonderful, provides seed for us farmers trying to grow seed. He helps guide, also gardening and tending to people's gardens. He does it all. He's just been an amazing inspiration for us.
There's a photograph of my garden,
Oh yeah,
Lance's garden.
and the book is
The
just
book.
amazing. Yeah, you guys need to take a look at it if you haven't. Yes, and so in the 70s, when I asked him when he first started saving seed, he's been growing seed since he, what was the
Man
one?
and bride corn
Right,
and Brazilian turtle black.
the turtle laughing since the 70s from St. Clement. That's right. Okay, and then he has the most exquisite white apricots. And I asked him what his favorite fruit was, and that one, and I would have to second that. The dried white apricot is also just over the top. It is over the top. So great to have Lance here. And then we have Mike Chamas and Jan Hoffman. Jan is not up here, but they run a farm over in Crawford. And they've owned the land 10 years. They've been here for 5. Doing garlic, raspberries, and grains, heritage grains. You're up to 11 acres you're going to be planting this year. And you started with, give me that little tidbit, you started purchasing the grains. You had some that were just 20 seeds, and now you're going to be growing, large scale, so it can go quick.
As we talk about seed saving, I'm really good at saving, I'm really bad at selling. Gotta learn that part.
And we're super excited to have you here and talking about your experience out there, and especially with the grains. Another great area. Okay, then Sarah Pope. She is an amazing gardener, librarian. She's championed our seed library here, and she's been working for several farms here in the valley and in seed saving. She oversees the Delta County Seed Library, and we've been doing that since 2014. So yeah, way to go. And it's just always, the community involvement is continuing to grow, more interest in it, and and she loves doing the dry beans. But also, you're quite the flower lady as well. So that was something that she didn't put in there, but I like to garden. She likes to garden. All right. And then we have Greg Cranson. And he's been in the valley now here. You have a 135-acre farm in the North Fork. You grew up on a huge farm in the Arkansas River, right, in southeast Colorado. And they have veggies, grains, seeds, and he's been here growing for 30 years now? Over 30 years, yeah. Their family has the Old River Trading Post and is a huge beacon for this community here, and the wealth of knowledge, I think, is overflowing, and I really appreciate you being here for this panel as well. So,
The real wealth is sitting up there. You know, I get to often now, I have the honor of going places, you know, sometimes quite a ways away. And I learned something a long time ago about people in conferences especially, is that the amount of reverence and accolades somebody gets is directly proportional to the number of miles they travel to get there. Right, so you always bring like Vandana Shiva in from India to teach us how to save seeds here. Right, and we worship that, but the real seed savers are here already. And so what we're trying to learn to do is just open up a space. That's what we get to do now. So that you guys can come together for a while and figure out how to get down the road. You know, where are we all going to be in 10 years? You know, the world is going to look a lot different in 10 years than it does today. I think the ship that we're on together is creaking, you know. I try to stay away from the news now, but whenever it comes in, it reminds me that, you know, the stock market's going up and down. There's all sorts of questions about our politics, the weather. You know, so what's your scenario for 10 years? What's it going to look like? How can we get to the best vision you have for our world in 10 years? And what questions do you have for these guys to help you get there? Because that's kind of what we're doing. This is real time. This isn't just, you know, we're not here for fun as far as I'm concerned. This is very real. And the time we have here is really valuable. And so, you know, maybe I can help focus your questions a little bit. As, you know, think about how do you get the best seed? If you're growing something, how do you get the best? The very best. You know, the time and energy in farming and gardening is in the farming and the gardening. You know, so when you get the seeds, you want it to work. It's probably worth it to spend all winter to figure out what to plant so that you conserve that energy all summer long. And I don't think a lot of us put a lot of thought in to the very best. What is it? Is that all local? Do we need to bring in diversity? You know? Or do we just get out the best catalog and order up again? I mean, those are the kinds of questions that I hear. I'm going to step back here, and hopefully you guys will have questions for these guys, but what you have here is really amazing to me. I get to go a lot of places. There's very few valleys that have this many small growers and this many conscious people that are starting to come together. And so, you know, my question is, what do you all need to do? What specific things do each of you need to get further down the road? What's keeping this from all being the paradise that we need it to be in 10 years, as far as our own local food and our own local seeds? And something I learned a long time ago is that gardening and farming questions are more important and more valuable the more personal they get. Right? We had national gardening magazines for a while, and they all went out of business because gardening isn't national. They ran out of topics to talk about. The real answers we all need are right here. And you guys have these guys right here. That's where the best knowledge is. And so it may be that these guys are never together again in a place like this for you to ask these questions. So any questions? Where do you get your seed? What do I grow? What do you think I should be doing? What kinds of things would you guys need from these guys?
I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna ask a question, and I wanna know what, I'm gonna pose this to Greg. What has driven the direction of what you grow the most seed of? Or what is your process? Like, how do you decide? Are you like, this works for me, I'm passionate about this, or is this what we need to grow for the trading post? Like, what? Could you give me a little background on what you're growing now for seed, what you have grown for seed, and then what drove, you know, was it about developing the seed, or was it about using the seed for just food, that sustenance?
One more every spring, when Addie and I, we pray about what we're going to put in the ground and watch this miracle happen. that I've been fascinated with since I've been just a little kid growing up on the farm. So we ask, what is it that's going to give us strength in our will to do the work that it takes to be out on the farm doing it? And then when we bring it in the fall, it's like, this is going to nourish us. And there's so many choices of what you can plant, so many varieties. I used to open the seed catalog. I don't do that so much anymore because there's so many choices. So I'm less and less looking at the varieties and picking certain varieties that I love to grow. So certain types of grain, wheat, corn, and also looking at more heirloom seeds and the availability of that. So that's what I look for, is that every year it's different. And I've started with some grains, heirloom wheat, just a few kernels, and now up to the point where I can actually grow it in enough quantity to be able to start baking with it and share it with the community. So yeah, I think it is just something that brings joy to me. I mean, there's that process of planting the seed and watching it grow and having a connection with the plant at the same time you're growing it is what I enjoy. And some plants I enjoy growing and some plants I don't more and more. So
That's
that
great.
answers your question.
Oh, it is. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Would you go as far to say that it speaks to you?
It speaks to me.
Yeah, that these different plants and different seeds and what they're speaking to. Yeah.
There's a connection.
Yeah, I just had a Harvard geneticist tell me that. She, Carol Deppe taught genetics at Harvard for 25 years. And now she's talking almost mystically about this unspeakable language that starts to develop if you'll just open yourself up and spend time there and listen. Thank you. Another question? Anybody else?
I'm wondering what heritage grains you're growing and how you decided. It sounds like you started with trials. How did you decide which varieties to grow?
Yeah, great question. I wish I could answer with the passion and the excitement of some of these other guys and gals. I had 19 varieties, just trialing them, and I started by trying to create some income. I could see the future, and we're from Crawford. It's a pretty tough place to make a living, and trying something different. And it led me into the heirloom grains with some health concerns, with some gluten issues. As I studied and read and looking at some of the different gluten profiles is what led me into it. I've gone from 19, I'm down to about 6, because as you get bigger, you just don't have enough land. Sonora wheat, Lareau wheat is a real rare, pretty specialized wheat. And the barleys just do great up there. And yeah, I want to share food with people, but I need to make a living too. And I see that on the horizon, I think, and I'd like to ask, as I read this flyer, it just speaks exactly where I'm at in it. A vibrant system of farmers, millers, bakers, and brewers. And I always felt that's where I was headed. So where is the end game in the market? And we heard about the bread lab in Washington, and I think that can happen here. And I think it's on its way with guys like a whole lot smarter than me, gonna get us there. I like running a seed drill, and I like running a combine. And other than that, I'm not sure I'm worthy to be up here.
You're worthy.
My question's for Pat. What's on your Peace and Plenty farm? What are you most passionate about right now, this coming spring, about trying to grow? And accomplishments that you feel are like milestones?
What I'm most passionate about right now is dealing with the drought and just being really in tune with what will grow this year. with the least amount of water. So I'm not planning on growing things that take water this year. And we'll see how it goes. So, but growing seeds biodynamically, and growing seeds biodynamically in a drought-ridden climate means that we're gonna really have to follow the rhythms that are happening, the cosmic rhythms that are happening with planting, with cultivating, with harvesting correctly, so that the seeds are gonna be their most vibrant. Pretty much all winter I just worked on compost. I probably still should have been cleaning seeds, but I didn't. So I just have, pretty good compost pile this year that'll help retain the moisture, and been spraying preps all winter, and I'm just hoping for the best, but I'm definitely going to cut down my growing and put most of it in cover this year. But that's okay, because the cover that I grow is the rye that these guys want for the trial, so, and it's already in the ground, so that's I'm just gonna hold off and let everything rest this year.
I've got some of your rye, it's
Yeah.
doing well.
Yeah.
I'm really thrilled with it.
Yeah, the rye that came to me came from a biodynamic grower in Canada who has grown that rye there since his father brought it over from Germany in the 1930s. So it's quite old, it's great, it's really good bread rye, and it's great cover crop rye, and I've grown it for a long time.
I've got it next to some conventional rye, and it's just ridiculous. I'm gonna be tilling up the conventional due to the drought and some issues, but just looking at it it's amazing, and watching its performance. I can't wait to get this stuff in a large scale.
See, that's the differences that we're looking for.
Yeah.
And I wanted to add something. I just heard a great story about, they came out of Tehachapi, California. One of the growers down there, a guy that was getting into heritage grains, got to thinking about it, and there's a green field in one of the upper valleys out of Tehachapi, whether they got water or not. It hadn't been taken care of. Old abandoned place. They went up there, it was a rye. They figure it was growing and reseeding itself for 130 years. And he said when you looked at the seed, it looked more like wild rice. The diversity was back into the sizes, shapes, the colors of the seed. So immediately they ground it up and baked it, and they loved. I mean, it was ridiculous. But here it is. Droughts are coming on in Tehachapi, and these guys have a rye that'll make it without the rains, or it has. Anyway, so keep your ears and eyes open for these sorts of things. I think we need to look and see. We had an agriculture here. Most of this heritage grain stuff, we've got the list from the 1938 USDA list of all the wheat and now barley varieties that were grown in Colorado. How many acres of each one of these? We can find the names of this stuff, but we can't get the seeds or very much of them. And I think there's things out there like this rye. So I just wanted to make that point. Yeah.
Well, and I also think that, unlike growing for production, growing for seed in a year of drought is a real opportunity to see what these seeds will do, and they may really perform. A lot of them may really perform well. And I wouldn't know that if we didn't have this condition of drought. So even though I'm sad a little bit around the opportunity to grow a lot of things, it will be great to grow some things that will be really working on their drought tolerance and be strong seeds.
Laura, I would love you to just dovetail onto what Pat was saying about growing seed in drought times.
That's how I'm approaching it as well. It's, when you're a seed grower, it's like the things that can be the harshest in farming, loss can be the greatest opportunity if you're keeping your eyes open to seeing, and making that a selection event. So I'm really trying to think intentionally about what crops I'm gonna put out to those elements, where I know I'm probably not gonna have water going into July. So, some things I'm excited about is Matt gave me a tomato that's from Italy that is traditionally grown, as I researched it, in clay and in drought conditions. So I'm really excited to kind of throw that tomato out there and see what happens. And yeah, I think it's an interesting place to be in a drought season, going into it as a seed grower. Kind of like you said, kind of like sadness, but also like, this isn't, we have to keep our eyes open. This is an opportunity and how to go about it. So, yeah. We'll see. It's exciting. Nerve-wracking a little bit, especially when you're dovetailing, you're like seed growing and production farming at the same time.
Lance, I'm wondering if you could share maybe a story about a variety or a plant that in your years working with you've seen evolve, you've seen adapt, and having, visited your garden and seen how much love and intention you put in to your work. I'm curious if you could share maybe what that process is for us who haven't done it year after year and developed a relationship with a variety and maybe seen how through that relationship a variety has evolved and adapted.
Well, right up, I know of one plant I tell people about this, the patients. I was growing Hutterite soup beans. And it's a white bean. It cooks up into chowder. And you only have to cook it for 30 minutes. Very soft bean. And I kept on growing. I kept on, no production at all. Just sort of got the seed back. And I was about ready to throw it out. Says, this isn't any good. 7th year, 7 years. Boom. It adapted. Hey, so you got to take time to do it. And it will. And if it really doesn't want to grow, it's not going to grow from the very beginning. It'll never do it. I just dug out a pear tree. Something a little different, but it doesn't like my place. And the Japanese white hull is popcorn that I've grown over the past 15 years, I think. When I first got it, it was very small kernels, and when you pop it, it was really small. And it was supposed to be Japanese white, and the first year, 2 ears of red showed up. So I've been encouraging the red a little bit. And it's now gets really big, it pops really good, it has really good flavor. And I've encouraged, so it's about 1/3 red, 2/3 white. And the other thing that we've been doing when you homegrown popcorn, you're gonna usually shell it with your hand. Some of us have corn shellers. But their popcorn is very pointed, and it tears your hands up. And so what my friends and I have been doing when we select for seed is we're only taking the rounded kernels, the cobs with the rounded kernels, and now it's at about 80% round. And so these are things that are adapting to that soil. And of course, all the carrots that I grow, they are slowly and surely adapting. And one of the things I noticed, I have 7 varieties, and after all these years, they're all starting to look the same. And I think it's the soil and water conditions. They're always the same. So they're actually the Danvers and the Chantenays and the French Diocines, Italian Giant Red, let's see, Scarlet Keeper. I grow a Rumba, that's the only one that's not changing because it's a short, fast one. And those other ones are all sort of turning out to be the same. They look the same, they're actually really different, but yeah.
How are you isolating 7 varieties of carrots?
I grow 1 variety every year. And everything's dated, so I know which one to do next. And this Scarlet Keeper that I'm going to grow out this year, the seed that I have from it is 14 years old, and it's still almost at 100% germination. So homegrown seed lasts a hell of a lot longer than anything on the market.
If you store it right.
If you store it right.
You have no queen.
What?
There's no Queen Anne's lace?
Not on my area. There's no Queen Anne's lace, and that's a wild carrot, so if it's Queen Anne's lace, you're going to have to cage it.
I go back to corn because I kind of fell in love with corn last year, and somebody gave me like a few kernels of this type and a few kernels of that type, and I just grew it all together, and I knew I couldn't save the seed, but I really loved what I got out of it, and I learned a lot.
You can save the seed.
Yeah.
You got your own breed.
Yes. So I wanted to know a little bit more about how you select varieties for this area and how you select the best seed from what is produced.
Well, it's trial and error, and I have a Hopi pink, a blue, and it's not a Hopi blue, a yellow flint, a Mandan bride, and a Japanese white Polis. I don't grow sweet corn. I like field corns. It lasts a lot longer. And I just kept on trying. And now, anybody that brings me corn from the Yucatan, I won't touch. It's a totally different day length and heat thing. We're high and we have cold nights, or cool nights. And where you select the seed from is from the middle of the cob. Take the most perfect color, the ones that look the best to you, because you're doing the selection. And you take the middle of the cob, it's going to produce the best ears and the best production, is where you do it from. And then, I don't know how many how many seeds you have. The minimum to get proper genetic diversity within the species is 100. And I'm growing 250 to 300 in my small garden. In corn, it will decline rather rapidly if you're growing less.
What do you mean by that?
Inbreeding.
Okay.
It's inbreeding. It's not enough diversity within that species.
It's why we don't marry our cousin anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
A community that does that after a while just isn't quite the same.
And the other thing is you have to watch out. Whoever else is growing corn, you don't want to be downwind. You want to be upwind, or like I originally had 2 gardens, north and south, and the winds blew east-west. So I had corn in both gardens.
You can also isolate in time too, if you have someone
yeah.
grow corn near to you and your corn short enough season with whatever conditions you have. You can wait about 2 weeks after or try to preempt them before for planting time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and another thing about corn is you grow it in a block. You don't grow single rows. Because it's wind pollinated, and some other friends asked me why they did a really perfectly long rows of 68 day and a 72 day and a 80 something day, and there wasn't a kernel of corn in the whole thing, and I just started laughing. Because there's one long row here and one, I said, which way did the wind blow? You know, this way. It didn't even blow down the wind. So you grow it in a block. And you know, it's better to have 5 rows with 20 plants in it than 2 rows.
And I'll tag on there. Lance taught me about where to select the seeds, as you just spoke on the corn cob. That applies to virtually everything.
I have a thing out there.
A fascinating article, and it speaks to yield increase, didn't it? Not just the genetic quality or the...
Yeah, it's on that list there, I'll get it, but it's for wheat or small grains, it's from the 4th grain up to just below the top. You can increase your production from, I think it was 7% to 14%, just from selecting the grain from those spots.
The different part of the head.
Yeah.
I need you to come over. I'm planting 12 acres next week. Can you select?
What you need to do is find the ones you want and you screen them.
Size.
Yeah, screen size, and you'll get it out.
So in a way, you are guiding that selection process.
Yes.
But if you were wanting to maintain the true seed, right? If you're a seed grower and there's a variety name, like Laura, if you were, selling you're growing out, let's say that's sweet orange too, we're gonna grow this tomato. Now we want to, it's not always about selecting just the best, right? Do you want more of a variety? I guess that's my question. It's like, what is keeping being true to the seed breeder?
So one thing I think about is you always want to be moving your seeds forward, evolving them. So you always do want to be roguing out kind of the off types and selecting for what you want. And I think for me, certainly working on this more and more, but trying to do some stock seed grow outs. So, and even in a grain or something, sometimes, or in an onion crop, for instance, I'll kind of select out my range of ideal types. And even though I have a much bigger population, I'll put all those in one section and like flag it really intensely. And that's where I'll take my stock seed from, and that's where I continue to grow out my seed from, and the rest of the population I bulk, and that's what's sold. So they're still outcrossing with the whole population. So I'm trying for usually like 200 stecklings in an onion crop. Less sometimes, depends on what happens. Deer get into my crop, for instance. But yeah, so sometimes I'm doing things like that to kind of, continue to like improve the quality over time. Also, to me, like, I keep thinking about onions, but you see, as a commercial grower, I've seen onions degrade really rapidly, and that's generally because the way commercially their onions are produced when they go to seed, and so they usually kind of sidestep growing out full bulbs and really taking it through the holding phase. So they'll just grow out little bulbules basically, and then plant those out again to get the seed, because it's quicker, right, to get this to the seed part. But you're not allowing for that selection, like for selecting for holding, really important things in onions. So I think for me, thinking about that and how I'm different from how it's on a really big commercial scale done is important.
I was wondering if anybody is experimenting with quinoa seeds at a lower altitude than in the San Luis Valley. That we're getting it from the San Luis Valley, but I tried to grow it here and it was too hot. So I was wondering if any of you are experimenting with that, or any non-gluten grains.
Yeah, so that's one of my passions, and the high desert population, I call it, I've been growing for about 7 years. I actually just took my one plant selection that I'm really psyched about, that I saw very little heat loss in. And the high desert population is basically some genetics I first received from Unpeitu and from Frank Morton out in Oregon, or Washington, Oregon. Yeah, Oregon. And then I was gifted some from California as well. So there's a lot of different genetics in it, and I've been kind of mass selecting over time, and basically selecting for bigger grain size and strong plants that aren't lodging and that kind of thing.
I got some from Jerome Osinowski in the South.
Mm-hmm.
He's growing. He's getting it from lamb's quarter, which is very similar. Is in the same family,
Mm-hmm.
and he's getting bigger seeds, and all of us can grow lamb's weed.
Yeah.
And
And
so
quinoa
the seed there is he's able to get the right larger seeds. He's got them in the library up in Farmville.
Quinoa I found to be quite plastic. It adapts.
Plastic?
Yeah, it adapts quite quickly.
Oh, really? So are you able to grow it around here?
Yeah, I grew it in Kelowna, in Montrose, on the south side. So we're 6,500 feet. Yeah, and it does quite well. I really don't see much loss for heat. I do plant it pretty late. A lot of people plant it before the last frost. I usually plant it right around June 1st. I plant it late.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And get it.
Lamb's quarters up, that's when you plant it.
Yeah.
We grew some in Crawford and had harvest issues, super wet fall, and it was resprouting. And so we didn't continue with it, but it did well. Just didn't, the harvesting was the issue for us.
Yeah, it's definitely timing. Figuring out your timing with it is interesting. This season I'm thinking about doing some different timings, because I've just kind of selected, I think, for when I plant it around June 1st, and that's how's worked for the diversity that I'm growing. It allows me to be able to handle it.
We were late,
and I'm ready.
It pushed. It was just so late, and here we're talking about drought, but my problem that year was too wet. So
the timing can also affect the bug that gets on it, that really can damage it. So yeah, it is worth trying some different timings when you're growing it.
Do you find that the bugs come in at the end? Or
At the beginning,
At the
when it's
beginning.
little,
Okay.
yeah, and they'll really, there was a couple seasons that they were just like the swattiest little plants, and I just kept growing it, But now my plants are taller than me usually.
Wow, that's awesome.
Well, one of the things that I really like about the idea of seed libraries is that, everybody up here except for Lance, is not growing 100% of their own seeds. And so one of the great things about the seed library is we've got a couple of wonderful experts here that are growing several things that they're really good at. And what a great way to share them in the community. Because, if Lance has some of his carrot seeds in the seed library, and we have some of Mike's grains in the seed library, here's an opportunity to have access to those seeds, but not necessarily be growing all of them on your own land. And so that's one of the things that I really like is that you have access to the community of seed growers without having to do all those varieties on your own. So it's a really good opportunity, and I would say, first off, is to find one seed that you're really passionate about and just take it home. And really, if you are really inspired to save a squash seed, like you are going to be taping those flowers shut and hand pollinating, and if that's what gets you in the middle of the night, do it. But as far as gateway seeds go, there's a lot of really easy places to start too. I think how many people here have cilantro seeds coming on their ears, or dill that comes up in their garden, whether or not you would want it to be there. Marigold seeds. I always think of my grandmother going out in the fall and picking marigold heads to put in a little bag. And then there's a lot of really easy ones to get started with. Beans, peas, those are always really great places to start because you don't have to worry about cross-pollination. And you certainly want a good amount of plants, but you don't necessarily have to worry about spending 200 corn seeds in comparison. But I would say, whatever it is that inspires you, take that. Even if you go home and plant your whole garden in one thing, just because you really want to save those seeds, do it.
At the seed library, and Laura, what is the most popular seed so far with your business? And then I wanted to ask Don what the most popular crop you have is, and see if any of these match.
I would say at the seed library, what we get the most of is cilantro.
And we get most in?
And what most people come in looking for is tomatoes.
Tomatoes. Okay. Laura?
What is the most popular? Probably, what the most popular? I should know these.
Well, I think your tomato seed was out, so I don't know how you stocked
What's
it.
that?
But in Manka's, how your tomato seed
Yeah,
packet was
it
out.
really depends on the community that they're in and the timing and all of those things. I think I've been really surprised how popular some of my more medicinal herbs and things are. Yeah, and how people really know what motherwort is and the properties of it, or spilanthes even, the toothache plant. Anyway, so that's been like a real exciting surprise because I was like, this is never going to sell. These are just the plants I love, But a lot of people have been coming to the table for this, and also the quinoas. It's been fun to people aren't used to seeing that as a seed, so that's been it's definitely a popular one just for people to be like, randomly buy, and I'm like, tell me how it does, I really want to know, and hardly ever do I get feedback, but I know it's gone down to Texas, and it's gone all over the country now, so hopefully I'll start hearing some stories in a few years.
And Don,
Well, tomatoes, I'd say, is probably, in terms of our vegetables, is by far and away, it's the thing, you know, June 1st, they're like, so are they here yet? You know, they want tomatoes. And then our melons and tomatoes are something that we've sort of very consciously stuck to just heirloom varieties, and the melons, they're not necessarily the most productive, but we're melons. We like melons.
You're melon.
Melon sluts, I think it's sluts. You know, so for us, it's kind of fun to be starting a couple of different tomato seeds this year, and then the melons are harder. You know, it's hard when you're commercially growing, you know, 8 or 10 different things to then figure out, especially like a melon or you know, any of those types of families, to figure out where and how to select those seeds, you know, or take a year off from growing all of those other melons. You know, I think that's, for us, that's part of the trick too, is figuring out which
I hope you're growing
ones.
one melon.
Yeah. We got you.
So you're gonna save seed for melon this year? Is that what I just was hearing?
I am.
Oh.
I'm gonna get her other melons.
I would like to continue that question for Dawn. With being a market farmer, starting out of the gate as a market farmer, how do you wrap your brain around growing seed and integrating it into your system?
That's a good question. I would say we're figuring that out for sure. I think it's helped in a sense because over the years we've actually gone from trying to grow every single vegetable under the sun to really being more specific about which vegetables we grow. So that allows us room to grow other vegetables for seed and not have the sort of cross contamination. I mean, I think something that I came back from the Organic Seed Alliance conference with a real sort of deep appreciation for were those people who are not market gardeners and who really are just seed growers and are growing 8 acres of seed, and how they do that, and in terms of contracting with companies and growing seed out for them, and really making a living on what otherwise could be a market garden, but instead a seed farm. And so, you know, I think it's going to be fun evolving and growing different seeds, and you know, we've always saved a little bit here and there, but to actually do it with real intention. But I think there's also a lot of room in this valley in particular because of its location, the climate, the soil. You know, the awesome thing is a lot of people have been breeding seeds in places like Oregon and Washington. We can get a lot of seeds that have been through a lot of disease events. And we don't really have a lot of disease. We, of course, have some diseases, but if you get diseases or seeds that have gone through disease events there, you can bring them here and then adapt them to drought or adapt them to clay soils, high alkalinity, the things we deal with. And if they make it, now you've got seeds that have all of that in them, which I think is a really lucky thing. And we can grow seeds well here that people need organically, biodynamically out in the rest of the country too. So I think there's a huge opportunity for farmers here to do that. And the market garden, you know, unless you're really wanting to get into wholesale, it's a little congested. So I think it's a good place for farmers to look. And people like Lareau will buy them from you if you're willing to put in one kind of melon.
Well, yeah, that's a thing that I do, is run a seed farm for selling seeds, and I'm a production farmer as well, so it does create a lot of challenges and complexity to my farm and interesting decisions that you don't necessarily make as a production grower. Like, oh, okay, I'm gonna grow 15 varieties of carrots out this season. That's not normal. But, you know, I use a lot of times the production farming to inform, it's basically forcing trials that go to my markets, but inform my seed growing using it in that way. But it can be quite challenging. I'm continually moving forward with becoming more of a seed grower and less of a production farmer is my dream.
Well, the other answer is that having been doing market gardening for so long, we have grown at least 15 varieties of carrots, and you know, so
Yeah.
we've landed now after 15 years on several things that do work very well for us here. So then, if we're willing to say, okay, this year we're only going to grow the one melon because we noticed we love this one, and begin to really choose it for productivity, drought resistance, whatever. I think that helps.
So much in market gardening, like you're choosing like the best to sell, but you can't do that if you're saving the seeds. So how do you manage that, Laura, or
Yeah. Well, I sell the bad stuff. I mean, it's not bad, really. It's not, but I will keep the ideal types for the seed, for sure, on certain things. And it's definitely, you know, it doesn't make good business sense on the production side, because, you know, I want my first ripening peppers that are on productive plants that have more than one fruit, not just the first ripening on that only has one fruit or something. But yeah, I want that for seed, you know. But it also is really valuable to get to the market, like, you know, like people want the worms and stuff. So yeah, my farm is often like the, you know, as soon as the market's dying, I'm like, oh, here's all my stuff, you know, because I've been taking seed off of it for 3 weeks. So yeah, so sometimes my market customers, it's just all good stuff though. It just may not be the most beautiful that I'm taking for seed. Or the first out the gate. Yeah.
How are you doing financially, like growing seeds versus growing vegetables for market?
I was just explaining this to someone actually, that I have an interesting cycle on my farm, because pretty much anything that I make during the growing season goes into my seed business in the wintertime, when I'm packaging and selling and trying to do wholesale and all of the things that go into germ testing and all of the things that go into having a seed business. And then all the money that comes into the seed business in the winter goes into the production farm to get that going in the spring. So instead of having a CSA, I just have a seed company. It's super smart. Super easy. But in terms, you know, it's every year I'm seeing growth in the seed company that's like 200% growth. But it's not equivalent, you know, or with the production farming, I still need to be doing sales at farmers market and wholesale and to schools. Yeah, to run my business. At this point. I'm taking a chainsaw to it this year, though, my business. Trying to drop some markets and be more sane.
So, Mike, in the beginning, you mentioned you were looking at the gluten profiles of the grains you were growing because of gluten issues, and I wanted to hear a little bit more about that, what you discovered.
A lot of literature research shows some of the older ancient grains, you know, a lot of them still do have gluten, but the gluten profile is somewhat different, and it's down at the beta glucans and the stuff. I'm not really an expert, and I didn't really finish the research. I've seen it, some people, like I saw in one article, 80% of people sensitive to modern wheat can go back and eat the ancient wheat and get along with it okay. Now there's that 20% or more that can never have gluten. I have my problem, I itch when I have wheat. And thank you, Molly, for bringing some bread, because I ate some of her bread tonight. so I will be. So I'm pretty fortunate, that's my issue. I really don't know anybody who has come to me and said, I'm cured. So does that try to answer your question a little?
Yeah, I just wanted to know a little bit more about it because I've heard of the einkorn wheat. They started coming out with products made in Italy, I think. You can buy crackers and stuff that have wheat, but it's ancient wheat, and I didn't know much about that. I think the kernel size is smaller. Is that why? Because it hasn't been hybridized for the machinery and stuff. Does it work with your equipment?
Yeah, and I don't think size speaks to the gluten levels. It's a different profile, and I wish I could come up with some more data for you. I don't have all the good names, but it's what humans have evolved with for a long time, and some of these modern wheats, of course, haven't been around very long. You read some of the books, Wheat Belly or Grain Brain, we're dealing with some Alzheimer's in a family member. Just fascinating that we feel some of these modern wheats are making people sick, and that's another driver that pushed me to some of the older stuff, but I don't have the good science for you, I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks.
You know, every year we do a green school at the University of Colorado Springs. It's in January. It's kind of their J-Mester thing. And we've got scientists on the faculty there that are gluten intolerant, that are doing this research year to year. And so the last 3 years I've been watching their lectures change as more and more information comes out. And there's no smoking gun yet, but generally as you move back into ancient grains. So something that might help you a little bit is that einkorn's a completely different plant. It has 14 chromosomes. It was a wild grass that was developed over maybe 40,000 years, we think now, selected and made better and bigger, a little bit bigger kernels. And then it crossed somewhere someday with a wild grass, they think. And they know which one they think, wild ancient goat grass. And that produced amaranth, all right, and durum. The semolina, the pasta flour that's used all over the world is 28 chromosome wheat. So it doubled the number of chromosomes. So it's essentially a different kind of plant. And then that crossed again and came up with what we call lovingly the modern wheats, which have 42 chromosomes. So it's a completely different plant altogether. And I think the real problem, at least as I start to understand that, is even in the last 20 years, the amount of breeding that's gone into upping the amount of gluten and messing with the starch and protein levels in modern wheat so that we can produce what we call bread. I love it. It's like Velveeta. It's like a bread product, right? It's got 22 additives in addition to wheat in most normal modern bread. And so that's what's making us sick, in my opinion. And there's a lot of data. I don't know if the 80% holds up. But this year, for the first time, when you combine it with natural fermentation, going back to the old wild yeast, sourdough, if you combine that with ancient grains, they're even finding the worst patients with celiacs who could die from it are now being able to eat einkorn, sourdough einkorn. So that's a real break. And they don't know all of why yet. They don't have the scientific, they can't say, oh, that's because this changed. But there's a lot of circumstantial evidence about it. And so I'm going to grain school again just for those lectures. And so I'll just add that. I don't know any other updates, but it's coming. And I think we're going to see a major breakthrough. And it's really what's driving this new local grain economy. It's a shame that we all had to get sick to realize that, if you harvest your own wheat and you fresh mill it and bake your own bread right then using sourdough, it's just way better. And the only warning I'll tell you, and this just happened to me, is that I am ruined. I can't go anywhere anymore. I've got my little chunk of einkorn bread. If you come to seed school tomorrow, I'll show it to you. Because I take it everywhere I go. I covet it because I just can't eat anything else now. So
I saw some einkorn packets on the table.
Yeah.
Has anybody grown that in the region?
does really well.
Yeah.
I grew it last year. I have 4 5-gallon buckets of it from a 500 square foot plot.
Wow.
So get your seeds. There you go. See, the einkorn I have, you know, if you think about a wild grass that was grown by humans for 40,000 years, we call it einkorn, but it went here and here and here and up high and down low. You know, it's been all over. So you say einkorn and you don't know what you're getting, and that's why growing it here and having local seed is so important, because you could just, you know, what I have may fail here, but his obviously doesn't.
I grew some emmer a few years ago, and I stopped due to the threshing difficulties. It didn't thresh out very well. But again, it's the twin brother thing. Einkorn, father, son. I've heard them spoken, they're both the grandfathers of all wheats, or they're up there.
Mike, have you trialed any of the grain varieties that you're growing for bread production locally? And do you have any like that you're growing at a commercial scale right now?
Yes, commercial scale. Molly is the guinea pig on the bread. She grew some grain, and she's the baker. And again, I said earlier, I just like running the combine. I don't know much about baking. Obviously don't know much about the science of the gluten profiles, but I'm wanting to go to the brew pub and the distillery. I think that's next, and after this year I'll have those type quantities. When I started from 20 seeds, we were afraid to eat any of our own grain. If we dropped one, we would find it and put it back in the bucket. But yeah, we've now got those quantities, and I don't want to become an expert. I can't. Like, these guys are pretty sharp up here, and I'm not. But I need the feedback from the community, and I think there's plenty of people out there that can do that for me and us.
I think a lot of the little micro bakeries like Chrys's and there's a lot of opportunity if you just send samples around, because a lot of them have little mills for them to play with.
I've got people begging,
Yeah.
get me some grain. I've had some cleaning issues that Greg and Addie have helped me solve, I think, if I can ever get some time. He made a big breakthrough on a gravity table of his. It showed me the path to cleaning it for human consumption. I've got an old clipper that cleans pretty darn well, you know, but not quite the polish for human consumption or what I want to. And Greg kind of told me I'm being a little picky too, and I think I am, but if I'm going to hand something to the micro bakery, and I want it clean. So I've really struggled with that cleanliness and the equipment.
Another person you might connect with is Tyler Wilbanks in Mancus, because he's kind of homespun his own cleaning as well, and he does a lot of he does black barley, and he does a rye, or no, spelt. Yeah, spelt is his name on it.
Yeah, I'm needing some help with the equipment. Greg was a great step, and
We can hook you up with Tyler. He's like the new Joel Salatin. He's just so enthusiastic and smart and experienced. And he just gets excited about it. And he's got his own way of explaining it. And it's just a joy to be around him. But he figured, and it took him a long time, but he got sick. He got real sick, and he found the spelt variety he likes. And he's just spent 10 years figuring out how to do it and clean it. And it took him a long time, but he'd share stories with you, I'm sure.
Definitely, yeah. Thanks.
Well, I was gonna see if maybe we could go down the line and talk about cleaning your seed, because I know, especially when you get into a larger scale, that you are gonna run into a lot of issues, and it'd just be interesting to hear from everybody your experience with cleaning your seeds. Really, that really broad. You can pick whatever variety you want.
Okay. Yeah, so we do a lot of most everything hand scale at my farm. we do a lot of dancing on the seeds, I like to say. So, or like beating the seeds with a threshing stick, old school style. Also driving on them sometimes to thresh it. Yeah, if you got a big lot of beans and different things, sometimes driving. I think I've driven on barley actually. So yeah, you can do quite a significant amount just with kind of hand scale simple tools. So we'll be talking about that. And then a lot of, box fan, that's my main tool. Sometimes the wind. If there's a really strong wind, I love cleaning beans.
We're gonna do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Let's go, we've got a bunch of seed cleaning going on.
Yeah, we've just done it by hand as well, with a fan, and something I learned this year with the grain trial that I did with these guys, and I have some seed to give you, but not as much as I wanted, is don't wait to clean your seed, because sometimes the mice will find it, and they found, we had a lot of, not a lot, but we had a bunch of the 6 or 8 different kinds of grains that we got, and we don't have as much. And a couple of them, they really got them. So I think
mice.
The idea that I have killed most of them, I hope, anyways, or at least one iteration of them. But waiting till winter or sort of putting these things off, you gotta, if you're going to do that, I think really thinking that through and putting them in places where things aren't going to get into them, but then you got to also control for climatic things so they don't rot, or so there's a lot to consider, not to let it scare you. And and then the other thing I'd say about seed cleaning, I think, in terms of like what Bill's talking about the connectivity and really making this a community of the seed endeavor for the future, where we really are producing all of our own seed, is that the cleaning and then the de-hulling and those sort of key parts of it is actually, I'd say, probably the most lacking in a broad sense in terms of understanding just your home person, and also being able to clean it. So if you want to do a commercial venture, you can have the right quality. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for sharing that kind of knowledge.
And there's
that,
many
a lot of you guys
nuances
have.
to it.
Well, there's thousands of different kinds of seeds that you can save.
Yeah, and every
all,
variety.
Yeah,
and it's like constant learning. I mean, I learned a ton from Frank Morton about lettuce cleaning lettuce seeds just this year, and I'm like, oh my god, yes. So it's constant, always improving. Not doing
I think I'm kind of lucky in that regard, because my seed growing and saving is a labor of love, and I don't necessarily need to purvey it. I give it away. But the thing that's really unique about my seed cleaning is that I'm connected to a school, or I'm giving classes in the summer to children. So most of my seed cleaning gets done with kids. It's a great labor for them. They love hanging out with seeds and dancing on them. And then what they love even further than that is taking it into a foodstuff. So I've taken kids with the classes at the NIFSIS school where we've cleaned the wheat and then we've baked bread with it. Or we've cleaned the corn, then we've ground the corn, then we've made cornbread with it. Same thing with beans, making bean soup. And it feels really good to do it that way, because then it's something that gets returned to me, even though I can't really muster the support and the resources to actually sell the seed that I grow. I think it gets spread around the community in that way. So that's been my kind of long-standing experience, is having kids involved with seeds.
Let's see, I mainly do seed cleaning with my feet, my hands, and the fans. And I also have I took an old hammer mill shredder and welded on, had somebody weld on bicycle pedals and a bicycle seat. And I think there's some photographs in my garden book over there of a friend and I pouring grain through it, but I poured seed through it, and it's hand pedaled. It's really a lot of fun. Just put big tarps out on the driveway and go for it. And since I generally am doing, and I do screens, many different sizes screens, bands, and I have a friend who come down from Gunnison, and I'm really good at threshing, and she's really good at winnowing. And it works really well. And most of that all gets done by October. Maybe the small seeds, I put all of that during the winter time, but the grains and beans, all that's all cleaned. And every time I grow out one of the grains or beans, I immediately set aside a quart of seed for the next time I grow it, or a quart of grain, or more, every time. And the old stuff goes into the food plot.
And we've brought kids to dances before. They love to be on the bicycle.
They had a really good time on that bicycle.
Yeah, they love that bicycle thing. Dancing around on those tarps, they really like.
It's
Yeah,
the
you can use
coolest
cider
machine.
presses too, by the way, for like pepper seed, cider presses.
I built several different wacky things. That's the best I've seen. I wish I'd known you sooner. We did 1.25 acres, Jan and I, completely by hand, harvested with hand sickles. Cannot run the side at all. It's built for a shorter guy than me. But 1.25 acres was the limit for us. It kicked our butt. We've now gone to Carla Sheffy. I got her old 61 clipper cleaner. Works pretty darn good. I've got some questions like for Laura. I contaminate my seeds through my machinery, especially if my 66 gleaner combine is terrible.
Yeah.
Can't clean it out, it's a nightmare. So I can't go to the pure seed. So I've got to rogue out the rogues next year. And I limit the contamination to pretty small amount, like I do a jet barley, and then I do a Sonora wheat. So that's a real easy thing, and I can screen part of that, the big barley and the small wheat.
Yeah.
So I struggle with that stuff, being my size.
Yeah, that can be tricky with equipment, even the clippers, just getting it all cleaned out.
But winnowing is, I think I'm in the business, so I get to winnow stuff. I think that's the coolest. I'm fascinated by gravity and wind, and we use fans to control the direction, but great, fun process.
I've done beans before. I've done amaranth by hand, which made me not want to grow amaranth for seed, which is great, and it's really delicious. But trying to get all of the chaff out to eat a pot of porridge and like the work that went into that, I was like, I don't know.
We can.
I'll help you out with that.
Yeah. I think that I can.
All right, I'm excited, and I'm excited. Now I want to drive on our barn full of beans.
Well, I grew up in southeastern Colorado on the plains where there's like huge, like thousands and thousands of acres. We didn't have thousands of acres, but just having the combines going through and threshing it all and load. So I have, on our farm we had a shared combine with my uncle. So I had that experience. So I started out in Paonia here with, I always loved growing grains and seeing we used to jump into truckloads of wheat and just like gold, and we were sitting in gold, and just, wow, this is amazing. It's like, and so, and corn, and just having that experience. And so, when we started here, I had just a really small little, tractor pull, even have the engine on it to do threshing that way. And started out with just small grains, and so I've always been fascinated with the process of threshing the grain, cleaning it. It's just kind of mesmerizing for me. And now I have so I have a big combine, that's how I've been growing my grain, and I'm going back and forth because I love the process of being as close to the process as possible, and being there in the process and actually crushing the grain and breaking it out, and I'm like continually, my joy of it is like I'm getting all this insight, like the Spirit's talking to me at the same process. It's like, this is how I feel when I'm being crushed. You know, the first process of the threshing process, just like you go through this process where you feel crushed. And you have to break out. And when you break it, it has to break apart. So I relate to that in my own life as I'm doing the process. And that's what I love about it, is just all the time I'm doing it, it's like, yeah, I relate to this in my life. It was like my pride, the shell of pride around me is being like crushed. And it's like breaking out, and it's exposing the places where I think I know what I'm doing. And the land and the grain is telling me, you don't know what you're doing. You have a lot to learn. So stay humble and stay listening. So that's what I love, is like more and more like learning how to come off the big machine and like connect with the land and the plants and the seed and the care of it. And so I'm kind of in that place right now, the transition of finding a place where I can be consciously doing what I'm doing. And so I went all the way to Iowa, and I got this big, huge Crippen cleaner. So I'm set up to do, 1,000 pounds an hour if I want to. I can run through. My combine threshes it. And so I have a gravity table, so I can go through the process that gets a pretty clean product. And then we have a grinder at the store too. So we always imagine growing it, threshing it, and bringing it in and creating the bread. And so, but I also have I've also taken it and threshed it by hand. And the little seed that I'm doing, I dare not run it through the combine because it gets lost in the parts and you can't clean it out. And it's mixed, like Mike's saying, it mixes with the rest of it. So, but I enjoy that process, bringing it in just with the sickle and crushing it, winnowing it, and then seeing the seed. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's pretty good size setup with grain bins, and I can handle quite a bit of grain. I'm enjoying more and more the process of it. I'm just watching the seed go into the ground and letting go of it, going, okay, here it goes. And it's just like a leap of faith to let go of it. And so I'm enjoying reading the scriptures, because there's so many things in the scriptures that talks about the parables of the sower. And all that, when I'm out there doing it, I'm like, it's coming to mind. I'm going, yeah, wow, and it's falling on good ground. And this process. So I just want to share, when Alicia invited me to come here, it was like, I was praying about, what do I have to share? I mean, I have like a 10th grade education, never graduated from high school. And what I felt like was my education is my father allowed me to grow garden on my farm, on his farm. And that's what I dove into. And that's what I've been doing my whole life. And it's like, I'm just starting to learn how to listen to what really matters. And so, there's a scripture that came to mind when I was thinking about coming and sharing, because I thought, what do I have to share? It's so vast, it's so big, and I don't feel like I am qualified. So, but there's a scripture that came to mind. It's like the very last one in the Old Testament. It says, I'm coming, and I'm going to turn the hearts of the fathers back to the children, and the children's hearts back to the father. And I say, that's what it's about. This generational seed planting. It's about having our hearts turned back learning from the generation before, as we're growing the seeds, it's like, here's this whole generation, all of this love and care and awareness is being poured into the seeds we're growing with, watering it, and then we have this, and then the moment the seed is like transformed by the cosmos coming like right down into and imprinting the next generation. And so it's just like, wow, I'm excited to see people that are like stepping forward and saying, yes, we want to be conscious about what we're growing together. So that it's like that generational miracle that happens of actually me connecting with my Father on the land and receiving His vision for life on the land. I received that, and I'm passing it on to my kids. But it's like the same thing with the seeds that I'm so excited about. It's like, here's this miracle of having my heart loving the land and the seeds and watching the next generation. And it's like turning, it's like love, connection between the generations. And I think that's what we need at the same time. A little bit of just growing on the farm and yeah, being a part of the process of life. That's a little philosophy.
I just want to summarize. You know, one of the things that we learned a long time ago in seed school and that we try to pass on is that great question about cleaning. For me, that's where being a seed person becomes a craft. You're never going to read how to do it. People can give you tricks like Frank or whatever, but it's doing it. It's where you can become a journeyman. You're an apprentice when you start cleaning your own seed. And you can, small scale. You heard what they were saying about they're doing it without a lot of large equipment. Everybody can do it. I ran a small seed company for 28 years on 6 little screens and 2 box fans. I mean, it was a lot of work sometimes, but you can do it. But doing it well and doing it in an efficient manner, that just takes a long time. So, and again, that's where community comes in. The tricks you can learn. Lance's machine is so beautiful. I too was amazed when I saw it. You know, those are the kinds of things that we can share among each other and learn this craft and go forward together. So I hope you've enjoyed that part of it. So do you want to?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone who came out tonight. I mean, and to our panelists. Really, I wrote Leanne this morning. That I was super excited that they were here and I'm ready to be inspired, and you all have fully inspired, and really it's exciting, this little core group and all of these seeds being planted in our community. I think we just gotta keep on doing it and let it grow, you know. So thank you.